Welcome again to the Black Air Podcast with man Beast Gordy. I'm chopping it up with comedian, actor, and one of my favorite comedians, actor, Talent. How you doing today?
What up, fam? How we living?
Oh, we doing real good, man. I'm glad you came on. Hard to get in contact with you. Actually, I was a big fan of yours since I want to say Sunset Park, but I don't know if you appeared on Def Jam first.
I think Def Jam came first.
So it was since Def Jam. A big fan.
Def Jam came first, and by coming first, Def Jam allowed and opened them doors in for television and film, other things. You know what I mean? But yeah, my first TV credit was Showtime at the Apollo.
Okay.
Then it was Def Jam. Then then I've done. I don't know how I did 4 or 5 Def Jams. I did 4 or 5 Apollos. I did 5 or 6 Comicviews. I did 2 or 3 Comedy Central. Just everything that was out there to grab it.
Right. And I was born in '86, so I was one of them kids whose mom used to work late. My mom worked at the post office, so I was able to catch Comicview, Def Jam, even Showtime at the Apollo. Sometimes I was able to catch it one in the morning. So I'm probably able to see you in all of that. Now, with the start that you had with comedy, what was your path of getting started?
It was, first of all, it was one of those things that I always knew I would do. I thought it would be a hobby. I didn't know people made a living from it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But my path was, I was into music first. I had a record deal, rap group, and we were supposed to blow that way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And with logistics and company, corporation problems messed everything up. You know what I mean? Us waiting for the music thing. With the collapse of B-Boy Records and all that stuff, it messed us up. I was writing first. A friend of mine tried stand-up first, one of my best friends, and I was writing for him first. And then he wasn't going good for him, and I'm like, I know it's not this little goofy stuff I'm writing. The stuff I was writing back then was so goofy, you had to laugh. So it was like, it got to be you, which tempted me to try it. So I went to a comedy room that was being hosted by my boy JB Smoove. And JB Smoove was hosting this place called Lady Eye, and it bordered our town, Mount Vernon in the Bronx. So He was doing Sunday night. So I said, let me go by here. And I went and watched the show. I think I watched it once or twice and seen that they was offering a New Jack segment, like to do 3 minutes. You might want to try comedy. Right. And I came a few weeks, I said, you know what, let me just jump up here and try it. And when I jumped up there and tried it, it was like no looking back. It was like, you got to do this. Like, you couldn't just do it one time. So I came back the next week, did it again, and went well. I came back the third week. It was like, yo, that's too much. You've been here 2 weeks in a row. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to go find where it's at. You know what I mean? And I just tapped in all my resources, find everywhere where it was at. And I was there, jumping on and off them stages. And I did that for a year where I kept my regular job running a warehouse. And after about 9-10 months, it was physically exhausting. I was like, I got to pick one. Right. And I jumped out on the ledge with comedy, and no looking back.
Okay, so who were some of your influences before you even started?
Before I seen JB became an instant influence because we were just funny guys in the projects. So when he actually took it to the next level, that was a big influence on me. But just from looking from afar, outside of the bubble, looking in, the usual suspects would be Richard Pryor, Red Fox. The unusual suspects would be like Carol Burnett, John Belushi's, and and those guys right there. And then fast forward, getting a little older, and comedy started to change, and you started to see younger cats do it. Everybody seemed old at first, and then they seemed young and hip and cool. And then guys like Tommy Davidson and all those guys were like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, those guys became those guys. It's just guys out there that was dope. Ralph Harris, Robin Harris, you know what I mean? Bernie Mac, so you start to see all these new people.
Right.
And then the women's game started to slowly be on the heels of that. So then all these people started to piece by piece become these little bits of inspiration, and you find yourself every day waking up a little more inspired. Thursday was a little more inspiring than Wednesday. You know,
Exactly.
and Friday trumped that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that whole era, the '90s, I want to say not even just comedy, but everything, basketball, music, all this stuff in the '90s seemed like the best in black, and you were a part of that era. Was it really competitive going toe to toe with some of the newer people, even people that you never even seen before, and then seeing them for the first time and being like, wow. Is have ever in the morning where you went on stage right after somebody and say, damn, how am I top that?
I mean, I always feel like that, even to this day. But to be honest with you, it's not. It's only competition when you understand it's competition. Those in those days, it was such friendly fire. We didn't look at it like
Okay.
that. Like we didn't. It wasn't until you started to watch it years later, and now you got the you got this thing about it's like everything's a competition or whatever. But originally we never even looked at it like that. Like I never looked at it like we never had a huddle and be like, yo, this year New York comics, we're gonna take out Detroit comics and Detroit get together and be like, yo, we're gonna go after Atlanta comics. Like we never really looked at it like that. What
Yeah.
we would do is watch a whole season of taping and we'd be like, damn, yo, the Atlanta comics brought it this year, or Detroit comics brought it, Chicago. Like you would depend on how many we had in the bunch. Because
Right.
let's say Def Jam got five, people per show, and you do 5 shows a day. That's 25 comics
Right.
each day. So let's say there's 100. Out of those 100 comics, most of them came from clumps of places.
Yeah.
You would have, depending on the comedy scene in each city. So New York, of course, New York and LA got the biggest melting pots. So of course, you're gonna have a crop of New York, you're gonna have a crop of LA, and then you got everything in between.
Right.
And I remember the first year it went to LA, when Def Jam went from New York City to taping in LA, I'd never forget, like Atlanta handed everybody collectively, they
Mm-hmm.
handed everybody their ass.
Wow.
Atlanta had the most consistent, funny comedians on that season, whatever season that was that we first went to LA. And I was like, and up until that point, New York kind of was kicking ass.
Right.
So when that happened, I was like, yo, y'all represent. I mean, I represent it, but fuck we doing here? What we doing? You know what I
Right.
mean?
I remember
But
DC.
we never looked at it like competition.
I remember DC having a lot of comedians because Martin was hosting. He was always saying, from my home DC, it was Chappelle,
The
Ted
first couple
Carpenter.
of years,
Yeah.
DC had it on lock.
Yeah. And then it was probably a few coming from Chicago,
Yeah.
and I would always know the ones from Detroit. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was a lot of DC people that was coming on the first couple of years.
Oh yeah, like if you had 70 comedians in a season, easily you're gonna have 10 from certain cities. Like you're gonna have 5 to 10 from Chicago, 5 to 10 from repping Detroit. You're gonna have, and Atlanta came up later. Like I said, when we went to LA, by the time we went to LA to tape, they had a booming ass comedy scene by that point.
Right.
They were deep, and they had about the same amount as New York dudes that year, but they just crushed it better overall.
Yeah. I just had Thomas Ward on last week, and he was mentioning when he went on, he was on in LA, and he said the same month Tupac had just died. So it was kind of somber when he went on because a lot of people in LA were still feeling the pain from that. So, and we mentioned like those flagship years in New York was really the big years.
Is Thomas Ward still doing the pornos?
Oh, I got to show you the clip from last week. He actually won awards. He was like, "Yeah, I was the only person that ain't do no fucking, but won all the awards in porn." Yeah,
Me and him, we had meetings on that. When I would visit LA and we would link up, we would be kicking it and shit. Now one night we was kicking it, he just like gave me the A to Z of the business, like T. I'm killing him with this, and I'm like, you on to something, bro. I'm like, you on to something. I mean, I don't know if he ever got to doing what he wanted to do, but he had some great comedy ideas for
yeah.
the adult film industry too. I was like, yo, do that shit, yo.
He said he saved it for like 3 to 5 years. He had saved porn.
Yeah, do that shit, man. Do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You probably could have did something with the character Butter. Speaking of Butter, like, how did you get the script for Sunset Park?
Shout out to Bob Sumner, the executive producer from Def Comedy Jam, and True TV's, Laugh Mob. Bob's a super producer, but what people don't know, a lot of people don't understand, Bob got a great body of work where he goes back into being people's DJ in the comedy club, to promoter at a comedy club, to comedians management, to producing show. He's done it all leading the way up to before the Def Jam thing. So he has his hands in everything. He's connected. It's like a mob guy, made guy. I'm connected. He's connected. So Bob had gotten a call and a breakdown of a movie they were getting ready to work on. Robbie Reed was casting, and he read the treatment in the description of the character, and Bob said, in his mind, that's talent. And he called me and was like, yo, go down to this thing, do this audition, blah, blah, blah. They're making this basketball movie. And I'm like, Bob, I ain't never act a day in my life for real, for real. Like, I jumped on stage in a play once or something, but he's like, don't even worry about it. Just go down and be you. I'm telling you, I'm reading this character. This is you. And you just go down. So I go down there and read the joint. And it's like 2 or 3 callbacks. And then the last callback is to go to a gym. So after they get your acting and your look in place, then they're like, okay, let's see who could ball. You need that component as a ball film. So we did 2 of those and got picked for the joint. Now, in picking the joint, now, mind you, I was maybe 180, 185 in weight. But I had the baby face. It was dumb young in the face. And it was like, dude, we want you to drop, 15, look even more high schoolish. And I'm like, I've never been on a diet in my life. I'm like, I never had a diet. I'm skinny. I'm like, a diet? Y'all niggas tell me I can't eat? I got to eat. Like, no, we're going to get a regiment. We're going to do blah, 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 which they did because we had to move out to LA. And for a month and a half, we did all physical training before we even got to doing the movie part.
Oh, yeah, that's what's up.
They had to make us look as much high school as they could type thing. And so Bob called me with that, long story short. And I went down there after 3, 4, 5 auditions, calling back, basketball call back twice. I ended up landing the role, so courtesy of the phone call from Bobson.
That's what's up. So who was the person that you remember that didn't have a hard time looking too much high schoolish?
Like back then, nobody really looked old. Well, there was a couple people who looked older than us, but they didn't have principal roles. You know what I mean?
Right.
So everybody who had talking roles and kind of was a character, a real character in the joint, they kind of look young. Frederick, that motherfucker don't age at all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And Andre don't really look young.
This motherfucker could film strapped right now. Like he could drop Onyx like it never dropped right now.
Yeah.
Like you don't age. So he's the first principal behind Rhea Perlman, so it's good. So then you got me, Busy B, who really was young.
He was young, yeah.
And you got Terrence Howard. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at all the collectives, like I said, these dudes look dumb young. Even if you go look at it now, nobody really looks unbelievable. Even though we were, 20, 21, or whatever the hell we was, 22. Right. We were able to pull off 18. 17, 18.
Yeah, because I was thinking about Anthony. Anthony looks kind of like, because he had just did Blue Chips.
Yeah, he looked like, but see, if you've seen Blue Chips, you might not, it might be less believable because you just seen him do the college thing, and now he's doing the high school thing. Boy, he just looked like, to me, like a black dude, bald head, got left back 3 times.
Yeah. So after that, I mean, a lot of people would have expected to see you in a lot more of those type of sports films. Was it a good experience doing a sports film, or was it something that you just said, nah?
Absolutely. My thing just probably I didn't jump on a bunch of that type of stuff because I definitely know from being a comic first, I didn't want to be typecast into this one thing because once you do that, that's all they'll use you for. I knew that for one. For two, I love watching movies more than I love doing them. So I don't mind doing them, but I do them because it ups the ante on what we're able to charge as a fee, as a comic. So I know if I'll do them because, okay, I do this joint, that gives me the right to charge this to do comedy. Not because, oh my God, I gotta do it. Because it's less challenging than stand-up. Stand-up, every time I hit the stage, I gotta come up with everything. I gotta figure out the personalities in the room. I got to figure out the audience. I got to figure out the sound, the lighting, the timing. And that's all in the motion, in the moment. You got to figure it out. A script is something that's already done. I just got to read it and memorize it.
Right.
Like it's like the oldest thing they say about people think people with degrees are smarter than people without degrees. Not necessarily. You might have more information memorized. Doesn't make you smarter. It makes you have a catalog of memorization. You memorize some shit I didn't.
Yeah.
Don't make you smarter. You can recite the Constitution. I can't, but I'm a better businessman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like a lot of people. I tell a lot of people. Most of the people I look up to never graduated from college. You know what I'm saying? And they successful, highly successful. You know what I mean? In your comedy, you came up with your own catchphrase. It stuck with me a lot when you used to say, "It's just comedy. Don't take none of this shit personal." You know what I mean?
Right.
How did that come into being like a catchphrase?
You know what's crazy? It was straight accidental, right? And the crazy thing about it, dude, is I got so much merch. Like the branding on It's Just Comedy is so crazy, right? This is my sip cup when I'm working here. I got it all of mugs, sippy cups, thermoses, t-shirts, hoodies, hats. You see the hat, boom. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
the merch and the slogan has just taken its own life. Obviously, I would have started way earlier had I been a little brighter. You know, I was just excited to grab a microphone.
Right.
But it came from remember I told you the first TV credit was the Apollo.
Right.
So I'm doing the Apollo, and the way it's supposed to go, the lineup taping filming that day was supposed to be comedian Derek Ellis, MC Light, she had Roughneck out, and then Talent. That was the order on paper. Derek Ellis goes out, they boo the shit. You hear me? Is this game on?
Oh yeah.
They boo the diarrhea out of this month. You understand? Now, no attest to him because Derek Ellis is a brilliant comedian. I love him. I'm a fan. But the Apollo's rough. They don't care if you're a guest or not. They just there. Some people just there to boo and work their shit out. So they boo him. The people come off, go out there, give a speech. Oh, he's a guest. Don't boo him. You can't do that. Blah blah blah. We're gonna bring him back out. They bring him back out. They boo him to smithereens. Even worse, the second time. How dare you tell us we can't boo somebody, right? So
Yeah.
I'm almost shitting in my pants, but I keep myself calm by saying, T, don't worry. Once MC Light does Roughneck, everybody's gonna be super happy to hear that. You know, it's like a mini concert. When the guests used to come out on the show, they only did the hits that was out. So I was like, he's gonna come out, they're gonna forget about him. I'm gonna have a fair shot. It wasn't even that's how young in the game it was. It wasn't even like me feeling like I'm gonna rip that shit. No, because I didn't feel like I was scared to death. I'm like, well, at least I'll have a shot. I'm standing there backstage waiting for MC Lights in the dressing room, and the guy goes, "Okay." The Derek guy got booed twice. He was like, "All right, we're ready for Light." And they hit back over the speaker. It was like, she's not ready. She's gonna need 20 more minutes. Throw the talent nigga out." I'm like,
oh.
so in the audience, you're sitting. I'm going out to that mean ass audience that just got twice.
Damn.
I'm like, boom. So two things was born that day out of fear. My original comedy voice when I used to be like, "How y'all doing?" and all that.
Yeah.
That voice was born not on purpose, fear, right? And then I had to say something to myself. I said, before I tell a joke, I have to say something because the elephant in the room is they just booed this guy twice. And here come another comedian. So I got to say something. So I said, hey, man, you know, I'm not the last guy, something to that effect. I'm like, you know, y'all got to know how, you know, listen, first, I ain't got but one rule with my shit. Don't take nothing I say personal. It's just comedy, right? And I said, if I say you ugly and you happen to feel that you are ugly, it's just a coincidence. And they giggled. Like I got the whole place to giggle. Wasn't a full over the top laugh, but it was a giggle that let me know I disarmed them. And then I went right into my jokes for 7 minutes, 6, 7 minutes, whatever it was, and stood them up. And they was just happy to have somebody go right into it and do some shit they could relate to. And I think a lot of it is because it's in Harlem, right? This is what you got to know about New York. New York, you never supposed to let people in New York know where you're from until it's time. And the
Right.
problem with comedy is people let people know in your intro. So they saw it as an opening. Oh, we're gonna boo this country motherfucker. They said, give it up for Derek Ellis from Dallas, Texas. You know, all these New York niggas like, oh, we're gonna get. He opened his mouth and he is country. He got any type of accent, we going in. This is Harlem. And sure enough, they went in. So after I did the disarmament, I did the set, perfect ass set. When I say perfect, and I'm a critic on myself, but everything was done the way I wanted it to do. I didn't fumble over anything. When I say thank you, good night, and put the mic back in the holster and look up, they stood up. And that was all true.
That's what's up. I always say the personality that describes the Apollo crowd the most is probably Dame Dash. Because if you bad, he gonna let you know you bad. And probably gonna snap on you too. But if you good, you know what I'm saying, you good. You know what I mean?
But it was, you know, that audience, I think the problem with that audience is it wouldn't have been, I don't think the Apollo would have been as bad as it grown to be, but everybody kept trying to mold it to be something. Instead of just letting it be an organic audience, no matter who had it, no matter who the host was or whatever, you can always see they try to tame it or train it. And you really, other than rules and regulations, you really can't do that to audience to me. Comedy is the most organic form of entertainment.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't come out there and go, hey guys, all right, we're gonna start this show. You know, laugh a lot, you know, and then be quiet real quick after, or blah blah blah. Like, you just can't tell the audience to do that, because then you take the organ, you know what I mean, the organicness away, and it's gonna be all over the place. And that's what the Apollo was.
Right. That reminds me of a story I heard from Sinbad was on Arsenio. He said he was doing an engagement with the SOS band. And he said this is when they was live. So he said right before he was supposed to go on, they found out the SOS band couldn't make it. So he said, he told the MC, whatever you do, don't tell them until after I get off. The guy went on, he like, well, I sorry to inform you, but the SOS band didn't make it, not coming up Sinbad. And he said he went on and they started booing. He said after a while, he was like, all right, got paid. Y'all the fool. Like, I'm gonna just stand here and look at you. But they booed him because the person wasn't there. So that's exactly how that happened. With the music thing not working out initially, did you think about doing it after you got a little more notoriety for comedy?
Doing music?
Yeah.
No. Comedy was a clear, calling. You know, one was something I like to do, you know, and then one thing was, like I said, when I hit the stage that very first time, there was something that confirmed that this is your calling. It's not even like a thing you like to do, like basketball and like rapping and, you know, like movies and all those things you love, dogs, all those things you really love to do, but this is your calling. So there was really no looking back, and things happen so fast. You know what I mean? Like I said, in 1 year I had to quit my job. Like, I couldn't do both. So in 1 year of doing it, shit got real fast. So I was like, okay. And then it was, next thing you know, another year after that, you're on TV. The next thing you know, another year or two after that, you're in the movies. The next thing you know, you're moving to LA. Next thing you know, you got 3 places of residency. I mean, it moved so fast. Like, when I tell you I'm blessed to still be relevant in 2020, next year makes 30 years.
Right.
And it feel like I'm in my 6th, 7th year this year.
Right.
But that's a blessing, dude. Like, for something to be bestowed upon you so early and so fast, and you still to be here, that's a miracle.
There's nothing better than that. Nothing better than that at all. And I can attest to that because the gap between you doing Def Jam and Sunset Park was so close. And me, of course, I was like 11, 12 years old when they came out. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to fathom it. You know what I mean? And
yeah, it was so fast.
Yeah. So what actually changed within the comedy landscape that brings you to like booking comedians now?
Nothing. Right away, one of the things I did, and this is, thank God I did this, because this was what enabled me to leave a real job so quick and jump out there. A lot of people that I know in comedy, if you ask around, that's one of the hardest things for a comic, to know when and to jump out there and full-fledged try to do this. I mean, like, pay your bills, make a living, feed your kids. But what happened with me early on, in that first year, I got booked for a show. And I already was a business major and a math major. That was just me growing up in school. And I went to a show, I got booked for a show. I think I was making like maybe $75, $50 or some shit. And it was at this small hotel ballroom, 350 people. So I get there and I go to the desk where you take the tickets, but I know the people that's taking the tickets because it's a local show. So I know the people from around the way.
Right.
So we're talking and laughing, me and the girls that's at the door. And while I'm talking, some people coming in 5, 6 at a time. And some of them have tickets and some of them are buying tickets. So I move kind of out of the way, let them do their business. And I'm listening. And they're like, we got ours, but these 4, we need 4 more. You know, you only sell out, did you? It's like, no, it's 35, you know, so I'm sitting there like, and this is 91 or 90, yeah, 91. I'm like, I'm sitting there like 35. And the girl, and this somebody came in, was like, yeah, we got 5 more and we sold out. And I'm saying, how many old? You're like 350. So I immediately go doing the math. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, I said, the promoter is making 10, 12 stacks.
Right.
I said, we in there making $50, $75. It's 4 or 5 of us. So you put all that together, put the DJ, put the rental place, he's still making over 10 stacks. Right. I'm like, yo, this is not the right side of the business. You know, if you really, especially for me, because I'm like, it means so much to me monetarily because I jumped out the window.
Exactly.
So I knew right then and there, I said, boom, okay. I took the flyers up, put them in my pocket because I wanted to know, you know, how, you know, I'm looking at everything all night. I can't really concentrate on my shit because I'm really checking everything that's done out, how this is done from the other side.
Right.
And the very next holiday, I think it was Thanksgiving or Valentine's, I had started a company. I had, you know, I already was doing comedy, so I had a lot of comic friends. Just grabbed a few of my friends. I had a lineup. Just paid the deposit, got a place, and start promoting my own shows. But that was the night. That's what was it taught me that night, like business-wise, dude, you're on the wrong side of the gate. What are you gonna do? You wanna do 1 million shows at $50, or are you gonna be the dude paying people, you know, $150?
Right. So over the years, who are some of your favorite people if you're touring to tour with as far as comedy goes?
Oh man, that list so long, bro.
Not only that, but also your favorite places to go to.
Okay, like comic wise, man, the list is so long. I'm one of the few guys in comedy that literally can tell you they got a 30-year career with no real beefs. You know what I mean? Right. If I don't want to work with you, it's just that I don't want to be around your energy. Like, but there's no beefs. You know what I mean? But I do take energy very seriously. You know what I mean? So my spiritual zone and my energy zone got to be right. So it'll be people that I've been around before, be like, do I want to go there and be around that energy? Not really. You know, oh, those dudes are funny, but they're gonna smoke a lot of weed. I don't smoke weed. Right. You know, like, it could be anything, but I've been blessed to not have any real beefs. So I mean, that list goes from everybody from me and Kid Capri were like the best of friends on Def Jam tour. Me and Guy Torrey, best of friends. Ricky Harris, God bless the dead. You know, Yvette Wilson, God bless the dead. You know what I'm saying? Like Angela Means, Tasha Smith, Reginald Ballard, who plays Brumman from Martin. Right. Just so many, like Damon Williams, like, you know, Kim Whitley, Kim Coles, you know, it's just so many. The list is extravagance. Or, you know, it's just Adele Givens. Like it's just endless. So that's a too long question. That'll take up all our time. But cities, there's cities that I love. I'm a traveler, so I love almost all cities. I really can't sit here and go, man, that city was whack. I hate that city. I take a city in for whatever it's worth. And but there are places that give you that feeling like home. You know, that's Philly, Boston, Charlotte, Richmond, Norfolk, you know, Jersey, DC. You know what I mean? But when you're in those places, it feels so much like home. You know
Right.
what I mean? Connecticut. You know what I mean? Like Detroit, Chicago, of course. Like it's certain cities that when I go to, I get that home feeling. Like I'm not going to say that about Colorado Springs or Vegas. You know, certain cities that they don't feel like that. I mean, you're there, you take it in for what it's worth, you have a good time. But then there's those cities that when you're in, you got that home court advantage feeling.
Is
You know what I'm
it
saying?
like crowd? Is it tough to measure the crowd in some places that's not like home?
No, a crowd. When you're in America, the only time you think about the crowd is when you're not in America. That's, you know, for lack of a better word, you're home. You know,
Right.
Geographically in America, we predominantly all speak the same language. We predominantly go through the same lives. Like we can relate. You know what I mean? So we live the same lives, so it's easy to bring up stuff that's relatable. It's only when you leave here that you may slip up and talk on something that a person in this particular island or this particular country may not know what the fuck you talking about because they're like, what is that? Like you can't be in fucking you can't be in fucking Australia talking about the #2 train in the subway in the city.
Right.
You know, and the token booth and shit. They looking at you like, nigga, I got 2 kangaroos in the back. I don't know what.
All right. How bad has the not only the stand up but the booking situation gone due to COVID?
Well, I mean, just like everything else, when they shut everything down, they shut everything down. Like, so it went all the way to nil. Like, just I tell people all the time, like we're still playing catch up, even if you're getting out and you're getting lucky to get some work. Right now, those people are still playing catch up because you got X amount of months where you still got shit going out and nothing coming in. You know what I mean? The landlords still wanted their money. You know, the electric companies want their money for the bill, the water people, like the cable company, like all these things that you have that every month you're paying your bills on, child support, all that shit. They want their money, but ain't nothing coming in now. So everything just stopped. So now that things are slowly opening up, you're playing catch up. Now you're starting to catch up on those things you owe. I mean, let's be real. This is the most. So this election right here is the difference maker in our lifetime of if the Republicans win, we're not gonna have another lockdown. You know that they already showed you what they feel. But if the Democrats win, we may do another lockdown.
Right.
Because one party is seemingly to give more fucks on people getting sick and dying than the other.
Right.
That's just, I mean, you ain't got to agree with everybody's politics or whatever, but that's just a fact. You know, we watch this thing. We watch one side say, yo, wear the mask. And the other side like, it'll go away. It ain't that important. You know what I mean? It's like the flu. The flu?
Yeah.
Shit. Well, why we didn't need to order these ventilators with the flu?
Right. And a lot of people disregard the fact that it's like it's proven that at least one person knows somebody who's had it and has passed from it, but it's still like, okay, disregard the fact that Trump has a higher standard of medical care that he's getting, but he wants everybody to believe, oh, it's just like the flu. Like that's dangerous. You know what I mean?
But you know what's crazy about that? You know what's crazy about that is this. What I've learned by talking to people and being around people, even though it's touched, everybody knows somebody, it hit different to lose somebody.
Right.
Like we don't know somebody that got it, but let that shit hit a close relative or a friend, and you have to go through the whole real thing with the death. I mean, this was unprecedented, bro. Like, when have we seen in our lifetime where we got to bury somebody but can't bury it? We can't even show up.
Right.
You know, or these many people can't go to the funeral. When it was in the thick of things, there was none of this funeral and services and all that. When it was in the thick of things, that came later when we started to slowly open back up. You know, you get that phone call, they like, so listen, you want us to dig a hole or burn it?
Yeah.
Burn it or you burying it? And some people got that call, and that's traumatizing, man. One day somebody there, the next day they gone.
Yeah, and imagine having like in a city like Detroit that's crime riddled. I had a friend of mine who passed, actually two friends of mine who passed from gun violence in April. So even with that situation, they couldn't have a funeral. You know what I mean? So
crazy, man.
It's just a crazy situation. It's one that when you get older, living through it, you tell your grandkids and they're gonna be like, nah, I can't imagine that. You know what I mean? And we actually living through it.
It's definitely you definitely living through some stuff, man. That this is definitely its own history books.
Right. This year itself has been crazy. Like, of course, we have the news that the Lakers just won the championship. Are you a big basketball fan?
I am.
What do you feel about the new champion?
Huh?
What do you feel? Well, go ahead. You say you just got done arguing?
Yeah, LeBron's always going to be an argument. And especially with this chip that they just got, I thought AD should have been MVP of the series. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, his averages, his numbers, his clutchness and everything, and the impact that he changes the game. Don't get me wrong, LeBron's LeBron. He's great. But AD brought that that extra thing that made it a winning situation.
Right.
And the work that he put in, I thought he was MVP at the bare minimum, co-MVPs. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. I enjoyed it. I think we watched some of the best basketball get played this year.
Right. And I was talking, we did an interview with Dana Barrows, and he was talking about how the atmosphere changing from high school to college is so big that this went back to a kind of like a college atmosphere, not even college, really high school atmosphere in the NBA because there's nobody there. With LeBron's performance and, of course, with AD's performance, we can't forget about Jimmy Butler. You know what I mean? I asked this question to Dana Barrows. I'm going to ask you, what does this series do for Dana Barrows? Not Dana Barrows, Jimmy Butler's legacy?
Well, again, this is another argument we was having on the sports show, but in my brain, Jimmy has elevated to superstar status. You have stars and you got superstars in the league, and if he wasn't in the conversation before with the Kyries, the KDs, the LeBron, you got to put him in that now. I mean, he showed you, man. He showed you the arsenal. He showed you the leadership, and more importantly, he did a LeBron with less firepower. You know how LeBron likes to manufacture these championship teams. He's like to go over here, get 2 more stars and all that. Jimmy Butler with a island of misfit toys.
Right.
That was just a team. Wasn't nothing special. No other big star joining them and all that. That really was the island of misfit toys, and he made it happen with that team.
Right. And people was ready to say LeBron gave the Heat another ring too if they lost.
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, it would have been, man. I can just imagine. I got a friend of mine. He bet on Game 5. Yeah, he bet on Game 5 and lost. So his next means was like, man, I'm never defending LeBron in the greatest category conversation again.
but I feel the same way. I mean, that he got a good point because the problem with LeBron is this: we can't argue his greatness. He's great. He's a great basketball player, hands down. Open, shut case, boom. The only arguments you get with LeBron is when you start to compare. Now, when you start to say how great, when you say, oh, he's the greatest of all time, now you're putting over against the Magic, the Jordans, the Bird, or the Kareems. Now you got to slow down and have a real conversation because you got to say to yourself, hold on, player. You think he's the greatest of all time. He doesn't have the same killer instinct as Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and Kareem. At the end of the game, Kyrie said some shit a week ago that people got on Kyrie, and it's true. He was like, I'm happy to play with KD. He's going to be, happy to take that. He's a guy that'll take that shot. So everybody's like, oh, what is he saying? No, what he's saying is true. When they won with Kyrie and him on the same team, Kyrie took the shot.
Exactly.
LeBron, he defers too much. He's scared of the big shot. There's no way in the world you're going to tell me at the timing of, you could tell me 3/4 of the game what he did was right. But in the 4th quarter, at the end of the game with seconds on the clock and you're down 1, you don't kick out a high percentage shot for a low percentage shot. You just don't. Not when you get all the way to the rack. You could act like you're going to the rack and do it, but to drive all the way to the rack, they was gonna have to foul you, bro, or you was gonna make it.
Oh yeah.
And you could have won the game from the line, but you didn't either nor. You turned, kicked it back to Danny Green. Now Danny Green missed a shot, and him and his fiance started getting death threats. I tell you one thing, there's something to be said about death threats. Them shits work, didn't they?
Now I was telling people, I'm like, look, to be honest, I wouldn't have been mad at Danny Green. I would have been mad at Morris the most because he should have kicked it back out to Danny Green because he's a proven playoff player that has hit those shots before,
right?
Won 2 championships, and to send death threats off of one shot when you got to remember, with no playoff experience, Kobe shot 4 air balls.
Hey, but listen, man, the death threats work. He came out that bitch the next game. Listen, I said, boy, they put a little fear in that ass.
He was playing for his life.
I said, look at it. For one time, you look real fast. It looked like he had a Spurs jersey on.
I'm like, you gotta blame, because you gotta think about it. When they first started the series, they was on TNT, and Shaq was talking about he was his shooting coach. I'm like, blame Shaq.
I like it though. The NBA, I thought we seen some of the better ball playing, and I thought the most interesting thing we got to see was some people need an audience, and some people need no audience. We've watched a lot of unknowns shine through these playoffs in this bubble because maybe an audience is more distracting to them. But that's how basketball teams are. You know, you got people that are doper at practice and scrimmaging than when they're in the real game. And that's what we got to see.
Okay. So before we go, I'm going to ask you a top 3 question. Your top 3 stand-up bits of all time.
Mine?
That's not yours, yeah.
Oh, that's not mine. Okay.
Not yours.
Top 3 stand-up bits of all time. I like I would go with what's my man? You gotta put Robin Harris Baby Kids in.
Right.
You have to put Richard Pryor. So many of them. You can pick one, but for me, I would say either Mudbone or, Live on the Sunset Strip when he was talking about setting himself on fire. Which
right.
is classic. When a comic deals with the realer your shit is, the tougher it is. And then I always would put like Carol Burnett. She has so many bits that turn into sketches.
Wow.
So, one of her favorite things is that the old lady thing. Remember, they branched off and started the show called Mama's Family. That's from Carol Burnett bit. You know what I mean?
I used to watch
that. That was one of the best shows ever. And then if you go into the honorable mention, you got to do Bernie Mac, some Milk and Cookies.
Now, this is a debate because a lot of people, I remember Faison Love said when he first met Bernie Mac, he thought he was trying to do Robin Harris. So I always debate between Bebe Kids and Bernie's sister kids, which one is between the two.
Well, I mean, if you look at the way it's done, I think that Bebe Kids it was more potent because there's a certain type of style of comedy these guys do that aggravated style. You know what I mean? So they're coming from that POV, like close the door, and like that parent that's yelling at the kid. So they both kind of right there. But the difference in Bebe Kids is he's just a dude trying to get some ass. And this chick got all these fucking kids. That scenario is a lot funnier than my nieces and nephews. That's different. Like I understand your agitation more if you're the guy that's just over here trying to get some ass. Like people tell that joke all the time, man. I'm just here to fuck mother. Like when dudes got that, because we men, so we know that frustration. You're trying to hang in there no matter what's going on long enough to get this ass or whatever. Right. To me, that's hilarious. So I would edge it out with the Bebe Kids. Yeah, but never did I think that he was trying to be him or whatever. I never got that. I mean, two different styles, two different personas, you know. And like I said, Robin Harris, he was more of a snapper. If you was ever see Robin Harris, like that's why he hosted the room he had for so long.
Right.
Like he could talk to anybody and do it with the best of them. You know what I mean? Remind me of a guy named Cortez that passed away from over in the East Coast, New York. So, but yeah, I would go with that.
Okay. All right. So what's some of the new things you working on today?
Well, man, right now, thanks to COVID put a flame under my ass. It was like those death threats they gave Danny Green. COVID, COVID was my death threats. So it made me rush and do things that I had on the burner for later. It just made me bring it up to the forefront earlier. And then what I already was doing, it made me amplify and do it. Like I told you, like the merch, like the cups and I would get my shirts and because my It's Just Comedy shirts and hoodies and all that stuff and hats, like that, all this stuff flies. And it just needed me to push and pay attention to it. And it's like a baby, like a kid. Like,
Right.
if I want my son to play football, I'm gonna have to play football with him. You know
Right.
what I mean? So that got intensified. Like I'm on my social media every day. Now the day goes by where talent don't have a show or two on. Today's Monday. So I mean, we'll scratch that because I don't want to time the show. But on Mondays, I do Motivation Mondays twice. I do my sports show Box Seats. And then I do a political community show called Enough is Enough at 8:30 at night. So that's a 4-show day just on Monday.
Right.
Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 10 a.m. I'm on my platforms doing this show called Divided States of America. It's more political, more newsworthy. I'm just starting the show Friday at 11:30 on my platforms called The Race Debaters. And we're just tackling a lot of racially driven conversations, what is different for this race and this race in this country, and then at nighttime, man, I do my DJ thing. I got my music shows, Bump and Grind. I got Twitter After Dark. You know what I'm saying? We do White Wednesdays where we give away prizes, Thirsty Thursday. So, like I said, Sundays, I do Sunday stories. I got another comedian friend on the West Coast named Rocco, and we come on here and we do soundtracks and Sunday stories. So we'll pick an album or a soundtrack, play that music and theme it, thread it through the show with us telling backstage stories, travel stories, tour stories, all types of stuff, So right. Every day I'm doing something.
That's what's up. And of course the merch is hot, of course, with the slogan on there. I want to thank you again for coming on. Hopefully I can get you on again.
Yes, sir.
Of course, I was supposed to have Roddy Perry on too.
Okay, that's my co-host on Box Seats.
Yeah, so I got to get at him. He got a little busy, so I got to catch up with him and see what he's up to. But I want to thank you again for coming on the show. This is the Black Air Podcast. Any shout outs or social media shout outs?
Absolutely, man. I want to shout out all my comedians that have taken this time to tap into your creative side and not fall back deeper into the couch of, nothing's happening, so you ain't got to do nothing. When nothing's happening, that's when you make stuff happen. So shout out to the comedians like Rodney Perry, who he's on the front lines of this shit. Tony Roberts on the front lines. The JB Smooths out there. All my good friends that's doing this thing, and all my queens. We got your back, man. Boom.
And it's Talented Comedian or Talent Comedian on Instagram. Am I correct?
Talent the Comedian with a DA. It's Talent the Comedian on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at It's Just Comedy, and on Facebook, King Talent Harris.
All right. And I want to thank you all again for listening, watching. If you're on YouTube or if you're on Spotify, this is Black Air Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Peace, Gordy.